Right, 6 p.m. Okay, well, welcome everyone to our March public briefing agenda. As we always do, as the Mayor, as I should do, we acknowledge the traditions of the Ngarluma people on whose land we gathered here today. And let everyone know that this meeting will be live streamed and a record of the meeting will be made. Now, due to this being a public briefing, the purpose of the meeting is that it's the councillors to ask questions and obtain additional information relating to items for consideration on the agenda for the next SCM next week. There are no decisions made at a public agenda briefing. The meeting procedures are the same as an SCM. The standing orders will apply. Questions asked by councillors are to be answered by the CEO or a person nominated by the CEO. The meeting will be live streamed and a recording of the meeting will be made available. And it is copyright material, can't be used without written permission. And before going to a closed meeting, any members attending electronically need to be able to declare that they can maintain confidentiality through these deliberations. Okay, now, actually, while we've got Councillor Roots online, are you able to confirm for me, Councillor Roots, that you can maintain confidentiality?
I certainly can, Mr. Mayor, in a private room at the moment.
Thank you, Councillor Roots. All right. Item 3 is record of attendance, so which we have all councillors and staff here with Councillor Roots online. Now, I always get this one mixed up. Where's the lead one? Not there. But I'll ask the question while we've got it. Does anyone need leave for next week, or is everyone going to be in attendance next week? Yep. Okay. 4 is public question time, of which do we have a public question? Yes, we do.
Yes,
Taryn?
we do. I think we've received a question from Taryn. Yep.
Right, so we have Taryn Higgins. Taryn, you just need to say your name and address. We don't need your full address.
Okay.
Just,
Taryn Higgins, I'm a resident in Port Sampson.
thank you.
Yeah. I'm just going to read this page that's circulated from start to finish and then I'll leave it with you guys.
Thank you.
Yep.
I refer to items 10.2 in the attachments, the Point Sampson entry statement, final design, and opinion of probable cost. I respect the work the City of Karratha and their councillors do, and I'm not here to criticise anyone or specifics. I just feel there's a couple of questions I'd like to raise because I can't find the answers in the reading I've done on this project. It would be remiss of me if I did not ask council before the project proceeds to fabrication and installation. The below 2 statements are the reasons for my questions tonight. Council minutes quote November 25. The Point Sampson community is highly engaged and expressed strong desire to be actively involved in the design process to ensure the final project outcome reflects their collective vision. And second quote from the project summary and one of the key considerations in report number 1 from the consultant, community engagement is central to the project, ensuring the design reflects the town's values and heritage. The background to my question number 1 is as follows. I refer to the overall final design of the sign, not specific aspects of it. At the council meeting in November 25, a councillor asked a very important question. Part of that question was, there is disconnect between what the community thinks and what feedback's been collated in the report. Is there a chance to go back to the people involved before it comes back to council? I also acknowledge the answer that has been documented to this question, but it does not answer the specific question. It does not answer the question specific to this sign project. In each stage of the consultation process, Point Sampson's heritage and fishing industry was a common theme, together with other things. From November 25 to now, the design's not changed at all post the council's question in November. Wondering if anyone looked or read deeper into this and think the sign could better reflect Point Sampson's heritage and fishing industry together with what is already included in the final design. Whilst I know you can't please everyone, I feel there is still disconnect. Are we missing an opportunity to tell a better story about Point Sampson and this statement sign? Based on the documents relating to this project, my first question to council is, does council believe the sign you are voting on this month accurately reflects the Point Sampson community's collective vision, values and heritage based on the consultation, feedback and history of our town? And then the background to my question number 2, is I refer to the location / placement of the sign that's mentioned and pictured in the final concept design document and pictured in the agenda item tonight. The design document says the entry statement could be located somewhere within the pink areas highlighted. The statement will sit perpendicular to the road and face visitors entering town. I actually wonder where the boundary of Point Sampson is. My second question to council is, if the sign is going to be located where the document suggests at an angle of 90 degrees or perpendicular to the road, considering the size of the sign, approximately 4 metres long by 1.2 metres high, why has the design not been optimised to include something on the rear of the sign? And I just refer to a picture that was in the report from the consultant and one that I've kind of designed, and you can see that there's a much better story in this example than the current sign that is in front of council to vote on.
Thank you, Darren. I'll throw to you, CEO.
Do you want to take that on notice?
Yeah, I think I will.
There's quite a lot of detail there. So yes, so through the chair, and thank you to Taryn for your detailed question. We'll take that on notice and make sure we prepare a response for you. But yeah, really, this is also part of the engagement process. Is we have all of these touch points along the way with community, from workshops through to presenting it to council, and all of these layers are opportunities to make sure we end up in the right place. So I really appreciate you coming and sharing your questions with us. So thank you.
Opportunity.
That's right.
Thank you, Taryn. And council, as you know, this item's on the agenda. So Taryn has now exposed you to think, oh, I've got more questions. Well, then that is the
That's
purpose
fine.
of tonight's meeting. Okay, any more public questions? Okay, 5 is petitions, deputations and presentations, of which we have one. We have Sarah Whelan, the CEO of the Chamber of Commerce. Sarah, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. Very good to see you. Can we share that?
Actually,
Yes,
it's
we will.
shared with councillors.
Tired, but I'm all over it. I never remember that normally.
Sarah, can you see that now?
Yes, you can. There's a red box.
Yeah. Cool. Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. The City of Karratha's economic development and tourism strategy sets a clear direction to diversify the economy, strengthen small business capability, and grow tourism and investment in the region. Importantly, economic development in a regional centre like Karratha cannot be delivered by local government alone. It requires a coordinated effort between government, industry, and the business community. And that's where the KDCCI, Karratha Business Chamber of Commerce and Industry, plays a practical role. KDCCI connects more than 400 local businesses with major industry and government. Over the past year, we've delivered more than 60 targeted events and forums, along with around 80 business advisory sessions, translating strategy into real activity on the ground. For many local businesses, this coordination is essential. A capable local contractor, for example, may rely on chamber introductions and procurement forums to access decision makers and tender opportunities that would otherwise be difficult to reach. These initiatives directly support the city's priorities when empowering business, enabling investment, and building workforce capability. Delivering the city's strategy at scale requires significant resourcing. This strategy identifies more than 150 potential initiatives across its pillars. In comparable regional centres, implementation often involves multiple dedicated economic development staff responsible for engagement, investment attraction, promotion and advocacy. Karratha has adopted a different model. Rather than duplicating this capability entirely within local government, the city partners with organisations such as the KDCCI that are already embedded within the business community. This extends economic development capacity without the full costs of the internal delivery. This approach allows the city to extend its economic development capacity significantly without carrying the full internal staffing cost. We estimate that the KDCCI partnership model for every $1 invested from the city delivers $10 in value. From a business perspective, accessible local support matters. New operators relocating to the region or new starting businesses frequently need guidance on workforce recruitment, compliance, and market entry. Practical assistance that the Chamber helps facilitate through advisory services and its networks. One of the key reasons the City invests in KDCCI is the leverage the Chamber generates from that investment. City funding is important, but it does not fund the entirety of Chamber operations. KDCCI is a not-for-profit that leverages sponsorship, membership, program funding, and event revenue to deliver a much larger program of activity. City funding represents around 10% of the cost to deliver our projects and our overall services. In effect, public investment acts as a catalyst. Major initiatives such as the Business Excellence Awards, Indigenous Business Trade Show, and Careers Expo generate economic participation, strengthens supply chain opportunities, and builds local capability. For regional businesses facing high operating costs and distance from metropolitan services, locally delivered programs are particularly valuable. A sole trader or micro business may not have the resources to travel for professional development, but can access support and networking through Chamber initiatives delivered at Karratha. The Chamber delivers measurable outcomes for the local economy. 77% of our members employ fewer than 20 people, meaning our programs directly support small and medium enterprises. In 2025, more than 550 different businesses engaged in Chamber activities, with over 3,000 participants across events and programs. We delivered around 80 business advisory sessions and facilitated strong connections between SMEs and major projects. We also support workforce development, including a Careers Expo attracting more than 2,000 students from across the Pilbara, and growing engagement with Indigenous businesses and trade providers. SMEs need practical capability development, trusted networks, and direct pathways into supply chains to remain sustainable and competitive. A growing Indigenous business may rely on trade shows, networking forums, and capability programs to build visibility, secure partnerships, and expand its workforce locally. These outcomes rely on trusted relationships with the KDCCI that enable practical collaboration between business and industry. Ultimately, the value of this partnership should be considered in terms of outcomes. The Chamber delivers an extensive annual program of engagement and advocacy that strengthens connections between SMEs, major industry and government, while attracting sponsorship and collaboration that multiplies impact of public investment. Local businesses also benefit from coordinated advocacy on structural regional challenges, including workforce attraction, housing availability, connectivity, and aviation access, all of which influence economic confidence and investment. This partnership model enables the city to achieve broader economic development outcomes than would be possible through direct delivery alone. Together, the city and the Chamber are ensuring that the economic development strategy is not simply a plan, but a program of real activity that supports business growth and long-term regional prosperity. So I hope that you take all of that into consideration when you are thinking about and assessing our funding proposal that is on this week's agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. And even though there's not on the agenda, does anyone have any questions of Sarah at the moment? No, or if you think of any, it's on the agenda tonight. So
Thank you.
Okay, item 6 is our declarations of interest. Does anyone have any declarations of interest? Councillor Gillum?
I have a direct financial interest in item 10.2, the Point Sampson interest statement design probable cost, as it's going to be funded through the Rio Tinto partnership, and my husband Michael is an employee of Rio Tinto.
Councillor Gillum. Councillor Roots?
That's exactly the same for 10.2 for me. Husband is employed by Rio Tinto.
Thank you. And Councillor Furlong.
I have actually got two, and my first one is 10.1. I'm casual employee of PKUC, and one of the recommendations from the officers is that we consider bonded scholarships. So that's a financial interest. And the second one is my husband works, so it's 10.2. Works related. Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else? Right. Should something come to your mind, you've got time until the next meeting next week. Okay, 7 is the confirmation of minutes. We'll do that next week. 8, announcements by person presiding the discussion. All the meetings that I've had. So January, February. There was one I noticed, just for a correction. Where was this? Oh, the Regional Economic Development, the Red Grants Board. I did that. That was in person, not online. It's no big deal, but there's this in Karratha. This for the record. Yeah. And as you can see there, councillors, there was one discussion about autonomous vehicles. It's probably one of the most interesting ones. So we are talking the Productivity Commission at the moment around the thought of automated vehicles in Karratha, because there's others out there that feel that Karratha could be a desirable place to test this as the first place in Australia to have autonomous vehicles, particularly in the sort of ride share, Uber sort of market. That we'll speak with industry about it as well, about their buses that go to certain sites and that and maybe just one day we'll solve our logistics nightmare of interconnecting our towns in the Pilbara by getting automated trucks like they have in America that can solve some of our issues of connectivity of freight logistics through the region. So yeah, keep your ear to the ground with that one. All right, if anyone has any questions of me of any of those meetings, please reach out to me and I'll let you know some more information. 9 is the corporate and commercial reports, with 9.1 being the statements for the period ended 31st of January. With the recommendation on page 8, as the council received the financial statements for the financial report ending 31st of January 2026 as an attachments 1 to 4. Does anyone have any questions of our statements? Councillor Furlong?
Yeah, I do have one about capital expenditure. It's on that table on page 13. The year-to-date budget and the year-to-date actuals were 20 million of a variance, 44%. Is that because we're behind on projects, or we have? Just wondering why there's such a significant variance.
Yes, so thanks, Councillor Furlong. It will be about the timing between what we estimated we were going to do and where we're at. The actual delivery program is tracking better than last year and also better than the year before. We are getting our estimates closer to our delivery, but that is the difference.
Not that we're highly efficient.
No. Most of the delays will come down to procurement and contract availability, those sorts of things. And what you'll probably notice is at different times we will adjust the timing to reflect the actual status of particular projects.
Thank you. Any other questions? That's Jansen.
The debt's overdue. Do we need to review our Shakespeare rental agreements? Because there's two of them now showing large over arrears for vacating the property's unpaid rent. Do we have a problem with our systems that the people are getting to the point of owing 10 grand?
That's a good question. I don't think it's the systems, but perhaps if I can take that one offline and give you that will relate to the personal
So I'm guessing
situation.
Shakespeare means the workers' housing, is it?
Yeah, normally, and sometimes there'll be a process that we need to go through the Tenancy Act in terms of how we can actually close out those debts and realise them. So sometimes there's legislation there, but perhaps if I can take that one offline and I'll give you a bit more of the confidential information that relates to those situations, and then from there we can have a conversation about whether it's a process issue or you might find that there's a bit more information there about what the legislation requires us to do.
CEO. Any other questions on our reports before we move forward? Right. All right, 9.1 is the statements for period ended 31st of January 2026. The officer's recommendation that the council receive the financial statements for that period as shown in attachments 1 to 4. Any questions on our list of, oh, hang on, the wrong one. Did I read out the wrong recommendation? Just interest. Two. Oh, it reads the same. Any questions on our list of payments? Councillor Jansen.
New World Artists. 23,100. What's that for? I didn't get the page number. Payment 14708. 14708.
Can you answer that now, or do you want to take that off?
I can answer that now. Through the chair, that's a payment for headline act for Vernacular Festival this year.
That was part of the follow-up question on that. Is that what a band of that age costs these? That like what's that's just a deposit. I want to know, is that what
Act costs?
Yeah, what an act costs, like an act that is, gee, I was listening to them 20 years ago. So
they still value their skills.
Okay.
Through the chair,
I guess good value for money.
Look, through the chair, that the cost to bring artists up to the Pilbara is expensive, and obviously it comes with their production teams and other costs associated with that. That is a deposit. It is very difficult to find artists for that amount of money. Typically, you're paying potentially over $100,000, $200,000, if not more.
So that being a deposit, it doesn't actually say what percentage it covers.
Yeah, so it'd be around about 50%.
Okay. And is that the best we could get for that time of year? Like, could we have got something else? Like, if we were willing to chip in more money?
Through the chair, yes. If we want to throw in substantially more money, then it definitely opens up our options.
Okay. So what set the limit?
Our budget.
For Finacle.
For Finacle, yeah.
Yeah.
That's Jansen. You had another one? I think you had another one.
Yeah, it was enough. The Treadwell Management Services payment number 15744. Feasibility study, 40% claim, $44,919.60. I'm guessing you're going to tell me that's for the water park work.
Through the chair, yes, but that's not everything to date at this stage.
44,000 for 40%.
There it is. So,
True. That shit they provided, I think, will knock up in half of it.
yes. 40%. Yes. Councillor Jansen. Did you have another one?
There was one. Yeah, I just wanted to know, is it a local company called Wow Wipes, payment 12552? Is that a local company, or are we?
Wow Wipes Stores and Supplies, $4,000. Do you want to know what that is? You might take that one off. Take that on notice, Councillor, and we'll answer that in the briefing notes. Wow, I'll be
Wow.
interested to know. Yeah.
Big wipes.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions on our list of payments? Councillor Roots, no, you just. No? Right. 9.3 is our investments for period ended 31st of January 2026, with the officer's recommendation that we receive the investment report for that period. Does anyone have any questions on our reserve term deposits, some of our investments? Oh. I have one. Remember now. No questions on that one. We go to 9.4, which is our reserve review for 26-27. For the officer's recommendation that we establish a digital transformation reserve. Is there a presentation on this one?
There is a presentation on this one.
Before I go any further, let's hear the presentation.
Hello, Council Exec, not in the public. As part of our annual budget process, we look at the reserves and see what their appropriateness is to all our strategies and all our budget items that we've got in our budget. So this is how we've gone in this review. With the current changes, the wording changes are listed. So I'll read through the current purpose of these reserves and then I'll read out the proposed. So this reserve is maintained as part of the Community Infrastructure and Services Partnership and a related funding agreements between the City and Rio Tinto Iron Ore. The purpose of the reserve is to preserve funds received under each funding agreement under the partnership and restrict the funds for the purpose of each funding agreement. This has been simplified to this reserve is maintained as part of the City's Community Partnership Agreement, the CPA, and other related funding agreements between the City and Rio Tinto Iron Ore. Then the Infrastructure Reserve, the purpose of this reserve is to allow for the use of these reserve funds for the enhancement, replacement, refurbishment and purchase of infrastructure assets or project works of the City, inclusive of the associated repayment of borrowings on infrastructure. Project works funded from this reserve may not necessarily belong to the City, but must be carried out for the benefit of the City. This has also been simplified to read as to fund the upgrade, replacement, refurbishment, construction and purchase of infrastructure assets, inclusive of the associated repayment of borrowings on infrastructure or contributions towards assets that benefit the community. The next reserve is the Aerodrome Reserve. The purpose of this reserve is to fund the development, operation and maintenance of the Karratha Airport, inclusive of any repayments of borrowings. This has been simplified to state that to fund the development, operation and maintenance of the Karratha Airport and associated infrastructure, inclusive of any repayments of borrowings. The Waste Management Reserve. The purpose of this reserve is to fund development, operation and maintenance of the City's waste management facilities, inclusive of repayments or borrowings. This has been proposed to read to fund development, operation and maintenance of the City's waste management facilities and services, inclusive of repayment of borrowings. And then the Strategic Reserve, which was a new reserve that was brought in last financial year. The purpose of this reserve is to quarantine revenue funds that relate to contentious issues, projects or programs. Funds are placed into reserve whilst an outcome or timing is established and released upon resolution of these. This has been simplified to state to fund larger projects that are anticipated but not yet funded in the Council Plan 2025-2035. There is a proposed closure of reserve. So the Economic Development Reserve, the reserve will be closed and funds moved to the Strategic Reserve. The wording of the Strategic Reserve is brought into account for funding of strategies such as economic development strategy. And then new reserves we've got the digital transformation reserve. And the purpose of this reserve is to fund initiatives and infrastructure that support the city's digital and data transformation. Any questions, queries?
I might just maybe just hang there for 2 seconds. I might just read through the recommendation. So the recommendation, councillors, is to establish a digital transformation reserve for the purpose of funding the digital transformation and data initiatives of the city. B, to close the economic development reserve and transfer remaining funds to the strategic reserve. C, amend the purpose of the infrastructure reserve as outlined in the report. D, amend the purpose of the aerodrome reserve as outlined in the report. E, amend the purpose of the waste management reserve as outlined in the report. F, amend the purpose of the Rio Tinto partnership reserve as outlined in the report. And G, amend the purpose of the strategic reserve outlined in this report. Does anyone have any questions of Christine or anything relating to the officer's recommendation? Councillor Simpson.
Christine, what was the actual the economic development reserve? What was that actually set up for? And what was it used for? Obviously, it's time for something.
I believe the mayor actually knows a little bit of context.
Yeah.
Economic development strategy.
Rather than putting you in a situation, but I look at it was your reserve. The city's reserve. Look, I think that was actually one of the questions that we asked ourselves when we were doing the review, is that it was originally set up to support economic development initiatives, but we reviewed it because there wasn't really a clear mechanism for what money was going into it and what was it actually designed to fund. So we elevated it into a more general strategic reserve that can be used for various purposes, including economic development.
Okay. So then, just to lead on from that question, then obviously anything is economic development will just come to us as a process, not have a reserve fund. Yeah, okay.
That's right.
Yeah.
Councillor Harris.
Well, I've got questions too on the economic development reserve. I think I was with Daniel when we established this one. So just remind me though, what the funds that go into this reserve, where do they come from?
Did you want to ask that separate?
The current reserve there.
Yes, there's over $1 million in there.
So that-
so how does that get in there?
That's been there since the start of the reserve, and it's just basically sat there. There's been no mechanism to put more funds in, or really.
So there's no funding stream.
That's right.
You know, like percentage of
Correct.
the camps or anything like that.
I think we used to do we add that right. We used to just transfer it in there if we knew something was coming out. Yeah, like the budget review.
Through the chair, if I may, that's one of the problems we've identified with the reserves. It didn't have a methodology which provided an ongoing income stream into the reserve.
Set it up right to start with.
We're just continually improving how we do things.
Continuous improvement.
Yes.
Any other questions? I have a question. Establishing this digital transformation reserve. One, where's the money coming from to go into the reserve? How much do we need to put in a reserve for digital transformation? Like, what is the cost of digital transformation? It's all well and good to set up a reserve, but how much are we talking?
How much are we talking? Well, first of all, I'll just speak to the purpose. We are in a situation where almost everything we're touching at the moment is requiring some form of digital interface. And with AI, we're anticipating that we're going to continue to need to invest in technology, sort of almost on every level, regardless of whether or not it's how we do our work, to how we engage with our customers and our suppliers. So we're a long way behind the 8 ball. I might just throw to the director in terms of the sort of quantum and mechanisms, if you want to maybe talk to that.
Right, just to give you more context of how I'm thinking, is, technology improvements for me is business as usual, right? BAU, we're just going to keep, if you need to spend money to upgrade things or bring in digital transformation, we'll do it.
Correct.
So, what's the real thought around it? Because there's obviously must be a heavy cost if we're going to set up a reserve.
Through the CEO, probably 2 main areas that we're looking to bring
or to fund in the future, and a report will be due to come back to council to give you a bit of an update. But in regards to both ERP and data warehousing would be the other significant cost. What that cost is at the moment still being worked through, but we anticipate a workshop with council in a couple of months to go through those. But they're probably more significant investments as we continue on that journey.
So data, if I was to just bring it down a level to think about how that might work. Say koala storage, right? Storage units that you might rent to put physical goods in.
Yes.
Right. Is the cost going to be that we need to rent storage for data? Is that?
That could be a part of it. I think there's actually a whole level of work that needs to happen, which is about how you design your data library and how you set it up so that your information is accessible in parcels of data and can be used in a really flexible way. So, but I think really what we're foreshadowing is that we're currently trying to close out our enterprise resource system. And that has been quite complex and is about sort of getting the foundations right. But we can see that there's going to be additional investments required for us to put the infrastructure in place for the future. So there's still going to be some investments needed. And I think probably the full answer as to what the game plan is, what the quantums are, what the flight path looks like is being done at the moment in the form of an IT strategy. So we're really foreshadowing right now is a good time to set up a reserve, and then what we'll do is we'll, as some of these pieces start to fall in place, we'll talk to council about what are the specifics, make sure that councils are supportive of those specifics, and make sure that we've got some budget provisions for the long term to help us with putting in place the right IT for the future. Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Harris.
Also, along with my strategic reserve, that's obviously an existing reserve. What sort of balance have we got in there at the moment? Minus the 1 million we're putting in there from the economic development.
It's changing now that we have got the Q2 budget review in, so there will be some reserve changes there that I'll step through. Yeah. The balance of that has currently got an $8 million quarantine amount in it, so it's about 80.
So we just said the budget will have projects coming up. We'll put it in there to hold it. Is that what you say, or does it? Are we funding into there, not knowing where the money is going to come out later on?
We've funded. We put things in there in quarantine, then we don't require quarantine. So it's that the Woodside one, and this rating period we'll put another 8 million into of that rating for Woodside again, in case something else happens in the future with that.
So what you're saying is that the strategic reserve so far has just been funded by Woodside?
It's not just being funded, no. We've got another couple of other projects that we've had to quarantine money in there as well. Yeah. So
okay, any other questions on our reserves? I'll stay right there, Christine.
Yeah. Next one as well.
And then run us through our 25-26 review of the budget.
As well as our working on our annual budget for 26-27, we have also put together our budget review for Q2, which is the statutory budget. I'm just going to run through some key adjustments for operating. Our operating grants, subsidies and contributions revenue has increased by over 8 million. We have received a gifted asset in the form of Pearson Cove Road, which is essentially a non-cash item, but for accounting purposes, it's put through our books. Fees and charges, we've had an increase in fees and charges at both the airport and waste. 1.8 million for airport and 4,000 for waste. Interest earnings, we've had a $1 million reduction in the infrastructure reserve due to the Bainton development. So the context of that is it wasn't in the initial 25-26 budget. It came to council after the 25-26 budget was adopted. And so we've made an adjustment in this Q2 to look after that. Other revenue, we have workers' compensation reimbursements that were not originally budgeted for and now have been budgeted for. We have employee costs, 6.5 million of employee remuneration expenses, and then an additional 0.43 million for training and 0.28 million additional for staff housing. The insurance expenses, we've had an increase in our performance-based premiums for the year. This is an adjustment to account for that. In materials and contracts, we've had a $12 million reduction relating to the Mullatarga developments. This is basically a timing phasing situation. So we've received, well, we have received most of the money in this financial year. However, the 12 million might be expended till next financial year. And then interest expenses, Bulgara development has postponed the requirement for financing as it's been a little bit delayed. So we've reduced the interest expense that relates to the project. Key adjustments for non-operating, which is mainly our capital program. The 10-year footpath program, it's been increased to align with revised contract pricing. And that's moved 1.982 million off. There is an item in Q2 budget review for property acquisition for additional staff housing. That is also in a separate agenda item that will be looked at along after this one. The Coolangatta and DeWitt Road intersection, 1.721 million. This item needs to be carried forward and has now been put through the review. The quarter HQ capital, the quarter fit out to support and then priced at 790,000. That capital housing, Warrior Street units refurbishment adjustment, 472,000. Replace park furniture fencing, various park furniture fencing and handrails has been adjusted by the amount of 425,000. So footpaths, major replace renewals, increased in scope and cost rate, and that amount has increased by 349,000. The housing development in Bainton, the phasing timing schedule has been updated for that, and a portion of that will actually go into 26-27, and that's 4.3 million. The 7 Mile Waste Cell development budget forecast updated to reflect the tender price, and that's been adjusted at 3.999 million. The other adjustments down, road reseal program, scope is forwarded to 26-27 financial year to align to the footpaths and curbs program. That's been reduced by 2.284 million. The curb renewals has also been adjusted to align to the footpaths construction contract, and the impact of that is 1.96 reduction. Park enhancement scope has been forwarded to 2026-27. That was reduced by 1.419 million. And purchase equipment at the airport. So equipment purchases delayed to 26-27 financial year. That's 815,000. The Bayview Road culvert replacement, the profile's been updated to align to the construction timeline. That's been reduced by 809,000. The golf course maintenance compound, the phasing's been aligned to awarded contract. That's 734,000. And the Roburn Recreation Precinct, the project start expenditure has been delayed to 26-27. That's been reduced by 669,000. There has been subsequent movements in Q2 as well, as discussed earlier on. The key the reserve transfers is one in strategic reserve for the 8 million. There's a release of the quarantine rates. That's gone through the process and Landgate have advised that there was no objection. The infrastructure reserve, the funding for Bainton development, which was approved through the July 25 OCM. So we've had to put a movement of 21,510,000 for this financial year that will be coming out of the infrastructure reserve to fund that project. And then the infrastructure reserve has also had 1.75 earmarked for the funding of purchase of additional housing, which has its own separate agenda item. Any questions?
Yes. Councillor, is there any questions of the review of the budget? Councillor Gillen?
Just a quick one regarding the variance to the original budget for the fit out of the quarter. Is that to support city office administration staff over at the quarter, so they don't fit in here? Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Which department is going to be placed into the quarter?
That's a really good question. I don't have that information in front of me, but I can respond to that in the briefing notes. Yeah. We are definitely going through a sort of an office allocation rethink, and we're effectively trying to group teams that work closely together in similar locations, but then also we size the team to the location as well. So if there is an area that can fit 10 people, then that might be the team that goes in there. If it's an area that fits 20 people, then it might suit a different team. So there is a little bit of a jigsaw process going on at the moment.
Does this mean then that the conversation around the new purpose-built facility for city administration needs to come back to the forefront? There is staff everywhere, all over town.
Yeah, very good point. So, we're definitely under pressure in terms of where we can seat people. We have two things going on simultaneously. One, which is the immediate term, where we're looking at how we can optimise our seating arrangements using what we have in front of us. And then we also have a second piece of work, which is to look at a longer term solution as well. And I don't know, Director, if you wanted to.
Yeah, through the chair, we're about to release that package of work to the market to get a consultant on investigate for us.
Yeah, so we're kind of, at the moment, we're looking at decisions in sort of the 2 to 3 year time frame right now. And then we will have a look at whether or not it's worth us doing a renovation of this building or knock it down and start again. I have no idea what the options are at this point in time. So that's the piece of work that's going on at the moment.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so next week, councillors, the officers will be asking us to adopt the 25-26 review of the budget, which will result in a proposed surplus of $9,663 for the year ending 30 days in June, 30th of June, 2026. Okay. Now we move on to 6, the long-term financial plan. With the officer's recommendation that council will resolve to adopt the long-term financial plan 2026 to 36 as attached. Does anyone have any questions to our long-term financial plan?
Mr. Mayor, I'm just wondering, I think when this was tabled and then taken off the table, I believe another councillor had talked about the Bulgar Housing Initiative and the implementation of the Community Infrastructure Plan being separated out. So it's in there for 100 million as capital.
Oh, yes. Okay.
I think it was raised to separate that out.
New borrowings.
Yeah.
So, sorry, what's the question?
The question is it says in the new borrows 100 million, but that it's for the Bulgar Housing Initiative and implementation of the Community Infrastructure Plan.
So you want a question is how to separate in two parts?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Is there two different items?
Yeah. Okay, thanks. Is that do you see any issues with that, Director? No, that should be fine. Thanks for the question.
We get any other questions? I have a question. And it's regarding, and I put this up before, our use of REM plan as a base case scenario at a 1.05% growth rate, which impacts on all of our ratios and our assumptions. The fact that under operating expenses, our employee costs are going to go from 717 million to 784 million. So we've got the increase in employee costs, but then we're using a base case scenario of population growth of only 1.05%. So you're wondering the direct correlation of using that number, how we come up with those figures, because it'd be easy to work out that, with 133 properties being built by Perdaman, another 30 by Woodside, potentially more, another 170 odd dwellings that we're doing, Karratha coming online. If you add in the things that are actually in front of us and development approvals have been given and dirt has been turned and they're actually going ahead, our actual population growth, even the next 12 months, is going to be about 2.5%, which is higher than our base case scenario, 1.05%. So I wonder if we're underselling ourselves, which then, when it comes to us, council making a decision, a long-term financial plan, the number's going to be a little bit different if the population increase is more.
So we might take that question on notice. I think, but you're correct in that a long-term financial plan is going to be more accurate close up and become less accurate the further out you go. It's based on assumptions. You're quite rightly questioning some of those assumptions and perhaps challenging them.
Yeah, because our assumption of 1.05 is the assumption right in front of us.
Yeah, sure.
Based on REM plans data.
Yeah.
But we know what's happening because we've got development approvals that we know. We know what's going on.
Yeah. By its nature, we do tend to try and pitch long-term financial plans at the very conservative end, so that we're always sort of a little bit more in the heading into the worst case rather than best case, because we are looking more for upside rather than downside in terms of how that then rolls out. But let's come back to you on the underlying assumptions around population. I think is probably the critical one that you're raising.
Yeah.
And then how that then flows through to some of the property forecasts and rates projections.
Because then eventually they will impact on some of these ratios we've got here as well.
Yeah, sure.
So I'm just
and
curious.
this is an emerging document, right? So we can revise it at any time, and we do revise it annually. So you're right. It's trying to capture a picture of where we're at right now, so that we can use that to inform our decision making. But let's come back to you on the population one in particular, and then the other part I heard was rates projections based on potential development activity.
And I just think we actually have the data. We know what's like literally coming, not what it's not a forecast. It's real. It's real.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Nope. Right. 9.7 is the review of council policies with the officer's recommendation that we adopt the following council policies. There's the CS26, the feedback policy, and then repeal a couple of policies, CG15, the customer service charter, which is to be reclassified as an operational policy, and policy CE01, unbudgeted financial requests from community. Does anyone have any questions on the adoption of a policy and the repeal of two other policies? Nope. The unbudgeted financial request one's an interesting one, isn't it? Sort of, yeah. Sort of allows us as council to go, if it's there, you know what, we want to do this. I can see why we want to repeal it too, because we get through a budget process, right? All right, is there any other questions on those? Okay, 9.8 is the Audit and Risk and Improvement Committee for February 2026. And the committee's recommendation is that council receive the minutes of the Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee, which was held on the 16th of February, accept the amended terms of reference for the Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee. And 3, note the scheduled meeting dates for the Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee, Wednesday the 3rd of June, Monday the 17th of August, and Monday the 23rd of November. Does anyone have any questions on the minutes of that committee on terms of reference? No? All I can say, that is definitely a continued improvement committee. And it is moving forward at a good pace. It was good recommendations. 9.9 is the acquisition of residential properties to support workforce housing demand. We don't. With the officer's recommendation that council approved by absolute majority the inclusion of a new capital budget allocation of 1.75 million, of which that is what Christine was referring to in our budget review. They'll be funded from the infrastructure reserve, and 2, approve in principle 3.25 million in the 26-27 budget, which will be funded 60% from the aerodrome reserve and 40% from the waste reserve for the acquisition of residential properties to meet forecast workforce housing demand. Are there any questions, councillors? Councillor Johansson?
Will these be purchased off the current housing market, competing with, everyday residents?
Through the chair, yes.
Councillor Soffer?
I'm just interested to understand if we've looked at ways we could optimise housing that we already have. So, example, if we have any staff living in city housing that also own property locally, and could a policy setting encourage those employees to transition into their own house, which would then free up stock for other staff.
So through the chair, we've just introduced a policy which requires anyone who is in a city-owned dwelling, they cannot own a property within 60 kilometres of the city. And we've just introduced that and are going through a process with any impacted employees that they must either move out of the city-owned property or they need to divest their ownership in the other property within 12 months. So that is in line with other state government agencies, and what it does is it ensures that employees are not benefiting by having basically riding the capital gain of the property market while they're also using the house. So yes, we are looking at a range of different policies. That's one that is current and is occurring right now. We're going into an enterprise agreement negotiations, and one of the things we're looking at is ways that we can. We currently have allowances available to employees to support them, and we're looking at ways that we can use those allowances to encourage more people to be owner-occupiers rather than to be in council-owned housing. So that's definitely a goal and that we're working on. But what we do find is when we're bringing talent to the city, so let's say we have highly technical roles like town planners, for example, when we have to bring people into the city, we do need to have a place for them to land. But what our ultimate goal would be is that over a period of time, those people who've come to town, like the job, want to stay, we'll look at ways to actually get them to transition out of housing and into their own property. So there is a lot of work that's occurring in that space, and that's our ultimate goal.
And do we have the stock numbers on what that looks like bringing that stock back in? So when you're talking about the 12-month transition,
in terms of how many people look, I don't have those numbers because we've effectively what we've done is as at, I think it's 1st of March, the policy is being implemented around divesting any additional properties that people have got. And they've got a period of time of about 4 to 6 weeks where they need to make a declaration and then get a CEO approval for what their divestment process will be. So that's all happening right now. And anyone who owns a property and is in council housing, they either have to, in the next 4 to 6 weeks, either advise me that they're moving out of the house so that they can keep their own property, or they need to advise me that they're going through a process to divest and this is what it is. And that's sort of all happening in the months of March and April. Okay. And so I don't have the exact numbers because we're going through that unwinding process at the moment.
And then if we look at then part 2 of that recommendation for the 26-27 budget of 3.25 million, if we're looking at that transition period being around 12 months, are you envisaging we're still going to require more stock and what's going to be coming back potentially, depending on that strategy of?
Really good question. I think, first of all, you can see that that's a provision in principle. So that's allowing us some time to get the dust to settle. We've definitely got some employees who are moving moving out of city-owned housing and back into their own properties. Some of them are having to let their leases expire, like they might have a 12-month lease. So there are lots of different scenarios that are playing out. So this is intended to give maximum sort of agility. But we do know that we are, because council have requested that we drive some pretty ambitious agendas, we do have some increases in staffing numbers at the moment, and we are needing more houses. And just to give you a bit of an idea, we are not alone. All of the councils in the Pilbara are experiencing the same challenges. And one of our neighbouring councils, each employee role gets a house, and they budget 1.2 million for every house that they are putting onto the on cost for each employee. We're nowhere near that level. But they are the sorts of decisions that other councils are doing to try and get the right people into their business in order to deliver community requirements.
And then that probably leads to my next one, is the long-term target or cap for the proportion of staff in city housing. And if there is, have you considered a cap on what that looks like? Like a limit, I suppose. As we are investing a lot in housing, and I understand why, but is there going to be a limit on what that looks like from an employee ratio of houses versus employee numbers?
We haven't done it as a ratio, and I'd be anxious about doing that because it's been, we start from the perspective of every role doesn't have a house, and then the role has to justify the need for a house. So we're effectively arguing that any manager or any employee, any role where we add housing to it, there has to be a business case and a strong argument for them to opt into a housing model. And those arguments tend to be quite strict, and it relates to things such as we've gone out to market, we haven't been able to secure someone, or we have lost candidates because of the availability of housing, or for example, we added some categories of workers to the housing model because, and let me give you an example, some of the roles that we need at the airport, that if we don't have people in those roles, the airport closes down because it's a regulatory requirement that those roles are in place when the airport is open. So they have become housing eligible because if we don't have the house, we can't get the worker. Similarly, for aquatic centre managers, there are certain levels of skill and licensing that are required to run a public swimming pool. And if we don't have a person with those skills and we can't attract them to town, then we close the swimming pools. So there are various categories that we allocate housing to, but sitting across all of that is our goal to actually move people out of council housing and into their own. So the other thing we're looking at is for those people who have come to the city, are really invested, they want to set up their home here. We're working on strategies for how do we actually get them into their own place, because that's our ultimate goal, is to have people who really want to live here and want to work here. And so another thing I'm looking at the moment is where we've got people on fixed term contracts, like a 5-year, where they prove themselves to be a high performer, taking them off the 5-year contract and moving them onto a permanent contract. Because if you're on a 5-year contract, you're not incentivized to go and get a home loan and to buy a house. But if you're a proven candidate, let's move people off the 5-year contract and onto a permanent contract, and potentially make that an incentive for moving into your own property, right? So there's some access like that. So just going back to close out your question, is there a ratio? The answer to that is no. We start from there is no house, and then we only move into providing housing when it's essential. And if we don't do it, we can't provide the services that we need to provide. Thank you. That's right. Sorry, very long answer there. But
do we look at the market, for like East Corridor? So if we have staff working in the Eastern Corridor, do we look at buying out there rather than in town? Or we look at what's available in the market as opposed to.
Yeah, well, we haven't actually bought houses for a while because we've been optimising the stock that we've got. And this is sort of one of the first times for a while that we've looked at purchasing, and it's just because we've increased some of our staff numbers more recently that we're looking at purchasing to bridge the gap. But yeah, so in answer to your question, would we look at purchasing in the Eastern Corridor? Absolutely. We've got some housing eligible roles that are out there, and that can certainly be part of the mix.
Any other questions? I have a couple.
Of the 67 employee housing that's currently stated on here, how many of them are the actual critical roles, like you say, town planners, airport management, swimming pool management?
Well, they should all have a strong justification for the 67. So I would be saying that it should be the majority of them. The only reason that they wouldn't be in that, I can't actually think of any that wouldn't fit that criteria.
Must have a lot of swimming pools.
Well, it's not just swimming pools. It's CEOs and directors, and it's technical professionals we've got 100 different businesses that we run, and so there is a lot of different roles and a lot of different functions that we perform in order to deliver services to the community. So you're talking 67 there, but off an employee base that's up around 400. So we're talking about a ratio, 22%. About 22% is the current ratio.
And obviously we understand about attraction and retention. It's like every other small and medium business and large business in this town. We all have to house people.
So just to round that out, 22% for us, but I know that our neighbouring councils are sitting at 100% to get staff. So, we are trying to be as efficient as we can. Sorry, Mr.
That's okay. My question is around timing. So when do we need a 4x2 with a pool and three times 3-bedroom dwellings and 1 time 2-bedroom dwellings? Because I understand we need to budget for it. So one around timing, how quick do we need them? The second question is, with our housing development that we're doing, the 80 million we've put into housing, there's 37, is it, townhouses and apartments at Baynton. Online soon, there's 3 apartment buildings, of which 1 will be finished by the end of the year. Would we not look to fill the 3-bedroom and 2-bedroom dwellings with the properties we're investing in?
Might get the director to answer that.
Through the CEO, we timing wise, these are roles all actively out to recruit. So for the 30 June for FY 25-26 is how critical this is becoming for the business. The other aspect for Baynton, for example, that's on track to be completed by the end of December at the moment. There's also a couple of months potentially there for land transfer and the like. We are definitely looking at that and doing some modelling around that. It just won't be quick enough to meet some incoming needs, some immediate needs.
Right. I think it's just important for us to understand that because, the timing of things, because, we are investing significant amount of money in property as it is. And before we make any purchases, I understand there might be one needed immediately, but depending on the timing of when we need it, we should definitely be looking at the properties that we're investing in already. Because, we're going to be competing as much as everyone else is, particularly those apartments that are going out to the market. But because we're developing them, we have a better chance of securing some tenancies before it goes to market.
Correct.
Thank you. Any other questions? No. Okay, 9.110. 9.10 is the code of conduct for council members, committee members, and candidates. The officer's recommendation is that we adopt the updated code of conduct for council members, committee members, and candidates. And 2, we repeal policy CG18, complaint investigations, as it is being superseded. And 3, appoint the CEO to receive complaints in accordance with clause 11.3 of the code. Does anyone have any questions on the new code of conduct and the repeal of that policy? As a lot of this is relating to obviously new local government reforms of the appointment of a monitor and local government reforms as well on performance and council of conduct. Anyone have any questions? No, pretty straightforward. Okay, moving on to 10 is the community experience report. 10.1 of the health services investigation, of which we have a presentation.
Can I just ask, do we lead for briefing? Because this is I've got a financial.
Yeah, if it's direct financial.
That would be my suggestion, Councillor, is that you're not influencing even the conversation.
Thank you, Councillor Burlong. Burlong is less than 7:14 p.m. Dr. Kate.
Hi, everybody. Today, I'm providing a briefing on the outcomes of the city's health services investigation. The investigation explored potential initiatives the city could undertake to support the local health service sector. The purpose is to provide council with an overview of the recommended initiatives and proposed approach to implementing them ahead of the report being presented for consideration to advertise the report as well as the associated implementation plan for public consultation. As you're aware, the delivery of health services sits primarily with state and Commonwealth governments. This work therefore focused on identifying areas where the city could play a supportive and enabling complementary role, particularly through advocacy, partnerships and facilitation rather than direct service delivery. So for background, in 2024, the city engaged EY, Ernst & Young, to review the medical services housing scheme subsidy. Following that review, council resolved to continue the subsidy until the end of 30th of June 2025 and requested the CEO investigate the city's broader healthcare needs and identify potential initiatives that council could consider.
In response, EY was re-engaged to undertake a health services investigation. This work examined the current service provision, workforce challenges and future demand pressures affecting healthcare access in our local area. The initiative identified 8 potential initiatives where the city might be able to support improved health outcomes. The draft findings and initiatives were presented to Council for feedback on the 11th of August 2005, which informed the next stage of our review. It's important to note that this work did not explore or recommend any housing-related subsidy-type initiatives, as the city is already progressing a range of the housing-related measures through its broader housing action plan. So to develop a practical implementation plan, city officers conducted an internal workshop to review and prioritise the identified initiatives. Each initiative was assessed against the city's strategic priorities, legislative responsibilities, organisational capacity, as well as impact effort considerations. The assessment resulted in a differentiated approach to what was recommended in the actual consultant's report based on this review. The technical working group concluded that 4 initiatives should be progressed without any modification. These initiatives include amplifying current telehealth initiatives championed by WACS, amplifying patient-assisted travel and concierge initiatives, enhancing accessibility through telehealth through existing community facilities, and then partnering with WACS to reduce local service gaps. So progressing these initiatives will allow the city to add value by advocating for improved awareness of existing services and leveraging existing infrastructure, while acknowledging that service delivery remains the priority of other partners. The group also recommended 2 initiatives progress with modification. So these initiatives are about maximising awareness of and co-funding student attraction incentives and recalibrating existing industry partnerships. In both cases, modifications are needed to better align with the city's priority and capacity. So for the student attraction initiative, this meant focusing on local residents and advocating for increased delivery of medical and allied health courses, including potentially exploring bonded scholarships through PKUC and other universities. For industry partnerships, the first stage will explore engaging with current partners, their interest in the review's recommendations, and then from there identifying any opportunities for collaboration and support. Finally, 2 initiatives were recommended not to progress. These related to encouraging local service providers to facilitate remote supervision. It was assessed as having minimal city influence and was rated low impact and low effort. And the second was about modelling or expanding a mobile health unit, and that was considered outside of the city's current core role. It would also require substantial funding and specialist expertise. So based on the assessment, officers have developed a draft health services investigation implementation plan, which outline the prioritised set of initiatives we just stepped through and the steps to deliver them and the resources required. Initial planning can be accommodated within the existing budget, while any initiatives needing further additional funding will require separate council endorsement. The recommendation for council next week is not to adopt the plan immediately, but to advertise the draft for a minimum 2-week public consultation period. Following the consultation, officers will present the feedback back and final implementation plan for council endorsement. Thanks. Any questions?
Thank you, Kate. Yes, are there any questions? Well, I had one question based on the formal, getting a formal relationship with WACS. Do you see that as not just, tracking local service gaps, but also as a, helping WACS on their advocacy with the, with the state government and getting health outcomes? Is it that sort of relationship where we work together to help them advocate as well?
No, through the
Yes, through the chair. Very much so. I think WACS obviously also needs support with advocating for the needs of this region. And if we work in partnership, then we feel that they'll will be a lot more effective.
Yeah, agree with that. Any other questions, councillors? Oh, thank you, Kate. Okay, next is 10.2.
We need to get Jill back.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Yes. Good idea. I do just like to move on. Yeah. That's a long.
Comes back to go.
We entered the room at 7:21 p.m. Thank Councillor Johansson. He remembered you out there.
Yeah, there's got 2 items in the row.
Ah, yes, we have the Point Sampson entry statement. So all those that have a declaration of interest in this item. Thanks, Jim. All right, Councillor Furlong, Councillor Gillam, and Councillor Roots. And left the meeting at 7:21. You might have to just.
Yep.
Yeah.
We just have to send her a text. That's it.
Okay. Point Sampson entry statement, of which we have a presentation, which is you as well, Kate. Thank you.
I'm here today to brief you on the Point Sampson entry statement. This project came from community feedback from Point Sampson, and it was endorsed as part of the projects to be delivered under the Point Sampson interim plan by council in April 2024. Its purpose is to strengthen the town's identity and sense of place and provide a welcoming landmark for residents and visitors alike. So today I'll walk you through the final design, the estimated cost and the next steps, so council has the information it needs to make the decision. So following community's request and the interim plan, the city awarded the contract to create spaces in February 2025 to develop both concept and the detailed design. The design process was highly collaborative with community involved in a 3-step engagement process. This approach contributed to a final concept design that was guided by community's impact and a collective overall vision. The final draft concept was endorsed in December 2025 by council. The consultant has since delivered detailed design documentation and an opinion of probable cost. The city's operation and engineering teams have reviewed the proposed location, design and cost estimate and informed the reports that's going forward. We're now seeking council's consideration to proceed to procurement, fabrication and installation. The entry statement will be installed within the Point Sampson Roburn Road Reserve alongside the Point Sampson Information Bay. The final location maximises visibility from the road while complementing the wider Information Bay. The final detailed design translates the endorsed concept into a fabrication-ready specification. Key design features include the dual naming to acknowledge the Nullama traditional owners, the marine motifs, which came through strongly in community engagement, a whale tail, turtle, crab, and with colours now confirmed. The letter forms of the wave shapes optimise aesthetic flow and structural stability, and materials that we've selected for durability, including powder-coated aluminium, perforated aluminium, and checkered plate. The design also meets cyclone and flood requirements to ensure resilience. City engineers will confirm the final on-site location prior to installation. As requested by council in December, cultural interpretation will be supported through a small sign or QR code to a name pronouncing in Mullagurla and provide historical context. Further interpretive signage will be considered as part of the broader Point Sampson Entry and Information Bay landscaping project that officers are now commencing. Total estimated costs for the entry statement, including fabrication, installation and landscaping, is $212,750,000, excluding GST. This includes manufacture and supply, delivery, installation with footing, riprap, which I've learned is that fancy rocks you see with the mesh. And native plantings and a 15% contingency. Funding is already in place through the community partnership agreement with Rio Tinto, so the project is fully budgeted to proceed. If council endorses to proceed, officers will complete all planning and regulatory approvals, including building permits, proceed with procurement for fabrication and delivery of the signage components, install the footings and the entry statement, include interpretive signage to support traditional owner name, and undertake ongoing maintenance as required. The project is expected to be installed by October 2026, subject to council endorsement and procurement time.
Right. Are there any questions, councillors? Councillor Harris?
Is this likely to be manufactured locally, or are we going to be looking further afield?
I might direct that to.
Yeah, through the chair, we will release a open tender or quotation to the market, and hopefully we get local sign companies bidding.
And we could maybe save on the 10,000 delivery fee.
There you go. If we can, we'd like to.
All right, any other questions? Yes, Jason.
Do we know how much this lake one cost, the one that was sent through on the Teams chat?
Don't know the document that you're referring to.
It's a sign that, yeah, was brought in.
Through the chair, no, we've only just received this evening.
Okay. Can we find out?
We can.
Just based on the, the questions that have come in from a resident, is it like a missed opportunity when you look at something like that lake one compared to that science? That's pretty cool. The lake one.
Through the chair, I do have to add, we obviously engaged a professional sign maker and artist to develop the concept. So that is the product of the contract that we have in front of us this evening.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions?
Mine just sits with the interpretation component, which you touched on, Kate. My question with that is, has that been included then in the budget for this? Because it's not specifically in the recommendation. And if not, is it going to be an act, like how are you going to maintain that that's going to occur and the inclusion?
I'll just ask the director to answer that.
Through the chair. So there is a future project and for next financial year to look at the information bay in its entirety. There has already been research undertaken to determine the mechanism, I guess, for a QR code and the pronunciation going to a website, and that can sit within the city's existing platforms. We will undertake a broader piece of work around interpretive signage in general across Point Samson, but also can be and will be incorporated as part of the information bay.
Can I add?
Right.
The design and this input into the pronunciation was presented to NAT February.
Yep.
And they suggested a local business that's just started.
Yes.
Yeah. And it would be through an RFQ process.
Yeah, okay.
That's Jansen.
Just following up again on those questions, like it said there was a bit of a disconnect between what the community thinks and what feedback that was collected in the report. And they ask if there's any way I thought, my understanding as a council, I thought we had already done the process where we'd gone backwards and forwards a few times. Did some people miss out?
Through the chair, I do recall that question was raised by council, but I believe it was the disconnect was raised in relation to community feedback around using an Aboriginal name as opposed to the signage design itself. But we can definitely make sure that we go back and refer to that council meeting and ensure that we've covered that off. But I do believe the disconnect was specifically around community not necessarily wanting an Aboriginal name.
Okay.
I'd also just on our What We Make It page for this project, you can actually see the various touch points and the 3 sets of documents there as the design if evolved, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and the various layers of community feedback and sort of the refining process that we've gone through. So I've just been having a bit of a look at that myself. And so I think in terms of have we captured the community sentiment, I'd probably encourage council to go back through those reports and just have a look at how it unfolded. I mean, clearly, we're going to have a lot of different opinions, and even in the last round of feedback, you can sort of see even in the report, people going, I like that bit, I don't like that bit. So there's going to always be a bit of subjectivity in any design process, but I'll leave it with council to determine if we've hit the mark in terms of community sentiment.
One more question, again, following on from the question too, with the location of the design, being that it is one-sided in its current form, would it be best to be more situated like the Welcome to Dampier one, where it's not actually just
orientation?
Yeah,
orientation could change. Is that sort of the
that
question?
would be a great question.
Yeah, happy to help.
Yeah. Do you think we could review the orientation of the signage, given it is only one-sided?
Through the chair, we can have a look at it. I do believe that was already looked at in terms of potential location. There has been a provision for landscaping behind the sign, noting that it's not a two ways. But yes, we can. The location's still to be confirmed. The current location is based on advice internally from our engineering team. But yes, as I said, we can continue to look at the location.
Especially if that interactive piece falls into it, then they can drive in and enjoy it.
Any other questions? I guess I'll just make a point that even though a couple of councils had referred to Taryn's questions, I think our expectation is still we'll get a written response to Taryn's questions.
Correct. Yeah.
They come to us, I guess, as soon as practically possible.
Yeah. So we, sorry, Mr. Mayor, I'm cutting you off.
No, I finished.
Oh. But yeah, you're right. So what we'll do is we'll take those questions and put them into our briefing notes and provide a response, and then it'll go out with the republished agenda as our normal process.
Yep.
So that's done in the next couple of days.
I guess my request would be that that's normally available Friday, right?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, I would request that we get, if we got the answers, that it gets circulated to us.
You ask if we can
beforehand.
do that bit earlier.
Yeah, so we have a bit more time to consider the answers to the questions.
And Director, are you comfortable with doing that in the next couple of days?
Through the chair, yeah, we can start looking at that tomorrow and try and get something before Friday.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Kate. Okay. 10.3. Oh, it brings some people back in, I guess.
And
Councillor Roots, we need to head back online. Roots. Back in the meeting at 7:34 p.m. Okay, 10.3, Goomera Aboriginal Corporation lease appeal. With the officer's recommendation that the council approve a peppercorn lease of $10 per annum, plus GST and outgoings for 10 Headland Place, Karratha to Goomera Aboriginal Corporation, with a lease term of 1 year plus a further 1 year option being 1+1, giving a total potential lease term of 2 years, including a redevelopment clause. Are there any questions, councillors? Yes, Councillor Gillam.
Number 10, which one's that? Is that the funny tower looking building?
It is next to
bakery.
the bakery.
Yeah, next to the bakery.
It's the old info.
It's got a little fence.
Oh, okay. Yes, it's got the little fence. Okay.
Little fence. Was that your question?
That's part of the question. I'm just trying to figure out how to frame the rest of this up as a question so you don't cut me off. But I think, are we sure that running off a building and maintenance inspection that was done 15 months ago is a good idea of which to base our decision that it's habitable. So it said there that, see how I framed it as a question? Are we sure it's not a good idea to have another inspection? 15 months, we've seen a couple of cyclones pass through. Is the building habitable? Are we comfortable with it 1+1? Is it end of life? It's got the words like deteriorate in here. It's got that it's in poor condition. There's children coming in there for children's programming. There's cracked footpaths out the front. Is the city feeling comfortable that it's safe?
Thanks. I'm going to ask someone who knows more about the building than I do.
I will take it on notice
Okay.
so that I can refer to the building maintenance report.
Yeah, great. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? All right, question. Given that this building is end of life and that we might be looking at the option of knocking it over, are we going to help Goomera Aboriginal Court? I mean, I'm just thinking about them, like this is a space they utilise and have been utilising for a while now. And if it's at end of life and we're going to knock it down, where's Goomera Aboriginal Corporation and the early learning stuff they're providing going to go?
And does the city currently have another facility that could perhaps be offered?
Yeah.
Is there any other alternative other than letting kids in there?
Through the chair, there's no alternative at the moment. We will obviously work with Goomera to relocate them if it gets to that point where we are demolishing the building. There are other discussions going on around the future of that building and including potential purchase of that site, but also we have the CBD precinct structure plan that's underway that will help inform what that might look like. So that's not really answering your question in terms of do we have another space? No, we don't at this stage, but we'll work with them if they need to leave. Yeah.
It's a shame that Goomera aren't here tonight to give us a deposition in that. I would be interested to also understand if they're comfortable that it's safe or whether they feel they have nowhere else to go. And are they comfortable? Yeah.
Through the chat, I can't answer that.
Yeah, that's okay. That wasn't
but my team has been working with them and they are comfortable and they are choosing to stay.
Okay.
Comfortable and with this one. It doesn't matter. We'll work on it next week. Okay, any other questions on this one? No? Right. 10.4 is free swims and shots for January 2023 to 26. Is that right?
27 to 29.
Yeah. Look, that's what it's going to be. It's just the item reads at the top. 326 of what it was. Is that a mistake or am I not reading it?
I think what we're doing is we're reviewing the 23 to 26 and then we're recommending that it goes for further 27 to 29. So
10.4.
we can perhaps update the
10.4
heading.
review of free swims and shots from January 23 to 26.
That's it,
With the officer's recommendation this is there's nothing on this one, is it? To approve the continuation of the free swims and shots initiative for a further 3 years from 2027 to 29, and 2, approved by absolute majority pursuant to section 6.12 of the Local Government Act to waive the waiver of fees and charges for the calendar months of January 27, January 28 and January 29 for the following services: casual child swim at the Karratha Leisurepex, casual child swim at the Wickham Aquatic Facility, casual child swim at the Roebourne Aquatic Facility, casual shots at the Karratha Leisurepex outdoor courts, and casual shots at the Karratha Leisurepex indoor courts. Does anyone have any questions? No questions on swimming for free, playing basketball. Presume shots only refers to playing basketball, right? Okay, there's no questions on that one. We'll move to 11, which is the Development Services Report. And 11.1 being the Karratha District Chamber of Commerce Industry, which I've got a highlighted note here saying it's a presentation, but I presume this is the one that Sarah did.
No, we've got our own.
We've got our own presentation.
For the city, yeah.
Okay, of which there is a presentation. Louis.
Thanks, Louis.
Good evening, everyone. Today, I want to briefly walk you through the KDCCI sponsorship request by benchmarking it against other regional councils' contribution to the chamber and explaining why business support capacity is particularly important in our particular region. Most regional councils provide some funding to their chambers. Slide up there. Most regional councils provide some funding to their chambers, but generally at the lower level. However, those chambers typically focus on networking events and awards. Very few deliver structured business development support programs, and none deliver something equivalent to PING or the equivalent of Grow Local. The funding level here therefore reflects the broader scope of programs being delivered rather than a standard chamber subscription. In most regions, there are several organizations providing business development support. You can see in our case, we literally have KDCCI, as well as the Small Business Development Commission that provides 0.2 FTE within the Pilbara. At the same time, our business environment is quite complex, with high operational costs, resource sector procurement systems, and transient business base. Without a strong local chamber, there's a clear gap in business development support capacity within the region. So the ask here is for just over $500,000 over 3 years. We feel the recommendation, or our recommendation, is to continue the partnership with KDCCI for a further 3 years with a modest inflationary adjustment. This maintain an established business development support platform that connects local business with opportunities, support the diversification and growth of our local economy. Happy to take questions.
Questions, councillors? I have a question. I feel like I should know the answer. But who is the point two for the SBDC and where are they?
It's IPS services. They're paid for by the Small Business Development Commission, and they actually sit with the KDCTI. There's a small office there, and that is for the whole region. That is not just for Karratha.
So we're getting value from the SBDC? Anyone? Sarah?
That's
The next question should be asked where they're based.
Yeah, that was mine.
Yeah, first.
Question. A statement rolled up in a question.
Yeah, but the company have got it itself.
Sarah, Councillor Roots.
Yes, I have a few questions if I could.
Yes,
so I
can.
don't know if thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've gone through the documentation. I'm not sure if I'm perhaps missing an attachment, but I can't see any data on who is utilising the actual development side of things. So I suppose that's question one. So do we have data on who is using the development program through the KDCCI?
Are we talking about the PING program and Grow Local? Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, well, I mean, the report refers to a number of different things. So mainly one-on-one, boot camp. So I suppose we could start. Do we have data on those?
I don't have those numbers or who the specific businesses are, but in the reporting feedback from KDCCI in their acquittals, they provide a breakdown of the numbers of people that have utilised these services. So normally, retrospectively, we can get those numbers. I can take this on
Yeah, that would be my
Provide
suggestion.
you with actual numbers.
So, Louis, I'd suggest that we could respond to that in the briefing notes. Yep.
Great.
Thanks, councillor.
That'd be
Was
great.
that the
A
question?
few more questions.
That's fine.
Just with regards to what was next? I'd also like some more clarity on how the development offerings are determined. So that might be one on notice as well.
Yes. Thanks, councillor. We can respond to that.
Cool. And so there's just a bit of really appreciate, I probably should have started off, it's quite amazing to see what a very small but mighty team the KDCCR and the KDCCI are, and how many events that they deliver. I suppose my interest is predominantly for the people with smaller voices, so the sole traders, micro business and small business in town. And the actual development piece. So what are we actually getting in the way of developing those people rather than providing them with events, which certainly, you know, hold their place for value, but in the developing for our sole traders, micro business and small business. So it's stated 23.3% is what City of Karratha is contributing to the overall funding for the running of the KDCCI, but Sarah shared in her wonderful presentation earlier that it was only 10%. So I just wanted to know what was the correct data, understanding that funding is, you know, a movable thing. It's not a stagnant thing, but just wanted to know, was it 23 or 10?
Yeah, I think the director's got a response for that.
Through the chair, councillor Roots, I can certainly confirm, but my understanding is that that figure relates to the percentage of the programs that are offered as relates to our sponsorship, not the overall cost of running the KDCCI.
Roger, thank you. Appreciate that.
I have a question from that then. Is then the 23.3% is the total program cost over the 3-year period?
It's the delivery per annum based on the project delivery cost.
Right.
Program delivery cost.
Yeah. Councillor Roots, any other further questions?
Data on businesses benefiting, business coaching. I would love if just in the data that comes back taken on notice, if we could get some more clarity on who is utilising these programs so far, and any sort of testimonials for them would be great. Yeah, essentially, you know, this funding is for the people who are running these businesses, so it's competitive, and we're wanting to make sure that we're getting the best value for money for them. And also, if there's any data on with the Pilbara Indigenous business, is there cultural training for staff who are involved with that? And is there any processes for complaints handling around that program?
Thanks, councillor. We'll take that on notice.
Thank you.
Thanks, Louis. No further questions, councillors? Nope. Okay. 11.2 is the proposed major event sponsorship and attraction program for the Great Aussie Road Trips. The officer's recommendation that council approve it by absolute majority sponsorship under the NISAT policy to Visage Productions Foundation as follows. So $31,000 for a grant for 25-26 for the project Great Aussie Road Trips, and 2, approved by absolute majority a budget amendment for 25-26 for an additional $31,000 for the purposes of the funding for the recommended project under NISAT policy to be funded by transfer from the city's economic development reserve as follows. So 31,000 from the economic development reserve. That's it to the grant. Yeah. That's it. Any questions of this, councillors?
I don't know if I can see here, but just wanted to check, in the project City of Karratha Shire Ashburton episode, is the episode with both shires, you say how much are they putting in?
Through the chair, it'd be 50-50.
50%, 30%, 50%. Yeah. Okay.
I have a question. How can we transfer from the economic development reserve? We're repealing it.
Through the chair, we're not repealing it until the end of the financial year.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions? No. Okay. 11.3 is the environmental sustainability strategy, mid-cycle review and implementation plan. The officer's recommendation that council endorse the City of Karratha's environmental sustainability strategy, mid-cycle review and implementation plan as in attachment 1. Does anyone have any questions of this mid-cycle review? No questions? No? Okay, that's right. I didn't have any either, so. Okay, 11.4 is the request from Indara Digital Infrastructure for a lease within Reserve 30948 of the Karratha Airport with the officer's recommendation to request the Department of Planning and Lands and Heritage to initiate the excision of a portion of Reserve 30948 as per the area shown in attachment 1, and 2, request a crown lease to the City of Karratha over this portion of land with the power to grant a sublease for the purpose of telecommunications facility. Does anyone have any questions? Councillor Swaffler? I can just see your brain ticking over.
Yeah. Yeah, it comes for us.
Question.
Will this be a good outcome?
Will this good? Thank you, Councillor Johansson. I was thinking the same. I've got a statement to make, but yes, will this be a good outcome for this? Yes, the city.
It will, in the sense that it enables us to continue the lease.
Is there any other land that the state's interested in taking off of us?
Through the chair, that's a very broad question.
Yes, I know. It was my first word when I read this at first. I was like, state government, it's our land. Right.
Through the chair, it's their land.
It's actually crown land.
It's our land.
Yes.
It's listen,
The reserve funds.
we're in charge of our town and our town planning scheme. Anyway,
So through the chair, this allows us to tidy up this situation so we can properly sublease it for the purpose under which it's being used. So it's for tidying up the existing mess.
It is a bureaucratic tidy up.
There you are. It's a bureaucratic tidy up. I like that, bureaucratic tidy up.
any other questions? No. Moving on to 12, project and infrastructure reports. 12.1 is the Roebourne Recreation Precinct design, the tender outcome, with the officer's recommendation to accept the tender submitted by Gresley Abbas as the most advantageous tender to form a contract based on assessment of compliance criteria, quality criteria and pricing structures offered under RFT 42, and 2, authorise the CEO to execute a contract with Gresley Abbas up to a maximum contract value of 1.2 million and subject to any variations of a minor nature, and 3, approved by absolute majority a budget amendment to allocate 1.3 million across the 25-26 and 26-27 budgets to be funded from the infrastructure reserve as tabled. Are there any questions on this tender outcome, councillors? No? Again, there could be some statements made. We can move to next week.
Do you think the price they put in for that tender, is suitable for the amount of work required, based off the other two, a good $500,000 more?
Well, I think conversations about tender details are confidential. But we're obviously recommending what we think is the best price and quality tender is being put to you on the advice of the officers.
Nice. Any other questions, councillors? No? All right, well, that's for decision next week. 13 is the CEO reports. With 13.1 being the record of tender outcome and the delegation. So we got in there the information. Oh, that's 13.1. Is there any questions on that? Tender outcome, councillors. No. 13.2 is the information report for the community experience through January 2026. Any questions on the information in that report? No. 13.3 is the information report for concessions on fees for city facilities for January. Any questions on that one? No. 13.4 is the development services update, of which I expect there's no questions because there's nothing in it. 14 motions of which previous notice has been given. There is none. 15 questions by members of which due notice has been given. There is none. 16 urgent business. There is nothing. 17 is matters behind closed doors, which are just attachments.
Oh, we've
No,
got one.
no, we've got one in there.
17.1
Right.
is a confidential item.
Yeah, where did I miss that one? Okay.
Do you want me to go now?
Yes, indeed. 17.1 is a confidential item. I need all members of the public to leave.
Awesome. See you later.
Thanks.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, Lou. previous notice has been given. Councillor Roots, would you like to let us know what you're thinking?
Certainly, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So a notice of motion, this motion is effectively a free swim entry for seniors and comes in light of another agenda item earlier in our agenda. So basically this will be circulated currently in draft with the support of, administration are currently drafting that for us. To let everyone know, so my recommendation would be that council endorses the provision of free entry for eligible seniors to all of the city's aquatic facilities. And basically that's just to support active ageing, community wellbeing and increased participation in recreational activities. It would define eligible seniors as holders of a valid Australian government senior card, WA senior card or pension concession card, approved by absolute majority pursuant to section 6.12 of the Local Government Act, the waiver of fees and charges for eligible senior aquatic only memberships and casual entry to Karratha Leisureplex, Wickham Rec Centre and Roburn Aquatic Centre. And also this motion would be looking at our CEO reviewing it in 12 months' time. So basically it would look at, the impact and the outcomes in 12 months' time. Yeah, so if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to go through that.
Thank you, Councillor Rich. Has anyone got any questions?
Would there be any stats that we could pull already from seniors accessing the pool? Through
the chair. So we can, based on the memberships that we have already, and we could probably make an assumption around demographics.
And would that be possible to have in the additional information before? Yes. Yep. Thank you.
Simpson.
Councillor, so you gather the ideas around using the WA Seniors card or a pension card as a way where you based it on. Is that correct? For the discount? Yes.
Certainly. I mean, I know that there would be many different ways to look at that, but rather than basing off models that I've seen in the time that I've been on council, people having to register with particular rates notice or anything like that, I feel like that would be the most efficient way to be able to support this motion in the way that I'm trying to propose it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that when you start looking at this type of model, it's hard on administration to try and work out that discount effect on having something. So by using those two pieces of issued for the government to make that process a bit easier as we go through, just conscious around the burden you put back on someone to try and work out whether, which we've tried to do before. But yeah, I like the idea.
Absolutely. Yeah, the intention is not to create extra burden on administration and to make it, as financially feasible as possible. But my belief and the reason why I'm putting it forward is that the positive outcomes would far outweigh the small fee waiver that we would wear.
And in the admin response, we'll provide council with some understanding of what we would suggest as a process and whether we think it would be simple or difficult. So that's absolutely fine.
Okay. Thank you for letting us know of your notice of motion, Councillor Roots. Any other questions? No. Well, I think is the closure of the meeting. So it's closed at 8:13 p.m. and we'll see you all back here next Monday, 6 p.m. as the OCM. Thank you very much.
See you then. Thank you.